Hello everybody, welcome to my new video. It's another Procreate portrait, but this time I'm using different brushes. I recently started experimenting again with style with brushes. As you can see, this is a portrait of a celebrity, Ashley Olsen, one of the Olsen twins. I found this picture on Instagram, just randomly decided to save it. I do that a lot. I'll save references on my phone, and then out of the saved photos I will pick one for a new post. So the brushes that I'm gonna use in this portrait are Thylacine. It's one of the default Procreate brushes. It's the one that I started sketching in, and also I'm gonna use it for the background. I really like how it creates these stripes. I think it looks organic. All of the brushes that I picked for this portrait are organic. They look like real brushes. Another brush that I'm using here is called Turpentine, but I did customize it a little bit, changed some settings, made it a little less transparent. I like it better like this. As you can see, I'm using it right now for the skin, the hair. And this brush is called Twig. It's one of the default brushes. I didn't change the settings. I'm using it for details, for the eyebrows, as you can see. I think it's similar to Thylacine, because it's streaky, stripy. It's like a frayed brush, I guess. The marks that it creates is very random looking, messy looking. I think it adds more expression, abstraction, and energy to the portrait. Like, it makes it obvious that it's a painting. For blending, the brush that I use is also Turpentine, the customized version. And for eraser, I also use Turpentine, but the default settings. I've been using that type of eraser for a long time now. But for blending, I used to use Stickman. If you saw my older videos, you might have noticed that. So the effects are different. But in this portrait, I don't use blending too much. I think I don't use blending at all. I think this Turpentine brush doesn't really need blending, because the brush itself blends as you paint. So I tried to paint the face as realistically as I could, but not like hyper realistically, not photorealistic, but like I still wanted to look like a painting, not a photo. But at this stage it looks very cartoonish, very messy, so it will change. I'll try to tone down the shade of the eye a little bit. I'll change the proportions with liquify to make it look like Ashley actually. So in comparison to my older videos, this portrait I tried to make it look as similar to Ashley as I could, but maintaining this painterly, expressive, abstract feel. The color palette that I use is sampled from my older paintings. Some oranges, peaches, pinks, blues, but also beige skin tones. Although I did add new colors. I will pick a color from the ready palette and then I'll alter it a little bit. I added some purples and blues and greens to the skin that were not in the palette. Also, the background colors are a little more saturated, a little more punchy than the ones that are in this palette. So I use this palette as a base, and mostly the skin tones are taken without many changes from the palette, but the more saturated colors from the palette I did alter. At this point you can tell that the features are not quite there in terms of likeness. Like the nose is a little too wide, the lips are a little too big, the eyes are a little too low, too big, but I will change it later on in the video. So for layers in this portrait, I used more layers than in my previous videos. I added a paper texture on a separate layer on top of other layers. I found a paper texture photo on pexels.com and lately I've been using it a lot in these sketches. I think it adds to the effect I'm trying to achieve, to make it look like a physical traditional painting, not a digital one. So that paper texture in tandem with the texture of the brushes adds to this effect. My main layers are the sketch with a blue color using the thylacine brush. On a separate layer I added the colors, on 2 layers actually. Like you might have noticed how many layers I have. So the skin colors and the backgrounds. Background color is on a different layer. I did change the background later on because I didn't like this mustard yellow color. So I erased it, and on a different layer I added a different background. I did merge all the layers before using liquify, the sketch layer, skin tone layer. I think that's the only way to adjust the proportions. And right now I'm doing final adjustments, adding the thylacine marks, the twig marks, to make it look more expressive and more sketchy looking. I adjusted the eye color, toned it down a little bit. So in the beginning of the portrait I worked zoomed out, but later on, right now, as I'm adjusting the features, I zoomed in on the reference and on the canvas. Here I'm trying to change the eyes, the nose, because this time I care about likeness, as opposed to my previous videos where my excuse was always that I'm not trying to make it look like the reference. So to notice any proportion mistakes, I flip the canvas, flip the reference as well, just to freshen my perspective and liquefying any mistakes. I really like how the hair texture turned out. That's thanks to the Twig brush. It looks like a frayed, hairy, splayed brush. Or like a twig. So these are just the final adjustments on the eyes, and basically that's it. That's the portrait. Overall it took me about 70 minutes to complete this portrait, but I sped up the process for the video. I hope you liked the video. Subscribe for more, leave a comment, any recommendations for future videos, any critique, compliments as well are welcome. Thanks for watching, and bye.